Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Rock Motor City Madmouth. Yes, I'm sporting a Miami Marlins hat and a shirt. And the reason why is the Atlanta Braves can thank Adam Duvall for putting him on the, giving him an opportunity to win the World Series. So shout out to the Marlins, Adam Duvall. We'll get into that in a little while. But I'm pleased to be joined by Steve Balestrieri. Steve, welcome back. Good to have you.
It's good to be back.
And Mel Farr Jr., my superstar running back, superstar person. Glad to have you back again. Tonight it's the three-man booth. Suits me fine.
Hey, thank you. Great to be back.
All right, so before we get into any particulars here, I just want to let you know what things have been like for me over the last couple of weeks or so. I am back from a 4,543-mile road trip, which covered Wisconsin, Michigan, and Iowa, where I saw the Red Wings take on the Florida Panthers on Friday night. And then 2 days later, I went to see the Field of Dreams movie site in Dyersville, Iowa. And the Dyersville, Iowa thing came about when I got, when the Michigan State Spartans didn't have any room for my colleague George and I, didn't have any room for us to cover the game, or at least denied me. I said, the best denial I've ever had was don't go to Michigan State and go to Dyersville, Iowa. And you know what? I couldn't be happier with the way it worked out, because I got a very good, important bucket list item off the list, and some more promotional videos down the line. So it's been quite a whirlwind for sure. But meanwhile, I'm glad to be back at it with you guys. You guys, like I said, I can't thank you guys enough. I have a lot of fun with you guys. So you talk about a whirlwind, 4,543 miles that went as high as Iowa all the way to South Florida and a few other road trips in between. It is what it is, but here I am back at the friendly confines. So we're going to lead off this broadcast by talking about the National Football League. Okay, Zach Ertz to the Arizona Cardinals. Steve Balestrieri, what are your thoughts about that move?
I thought that was a really good move by the Cardinals, and seemed like he fit right in with like he'd been there for a long time. I think that's a great move for them. I still think they were due for a letdown. So they lost that game to Green Bay, but I still think they're going to be one of the final four in the NFC.
Mel, thoughts about Zach?
I think it was a great pickup for the Cardinals. I would say, I know he was a little disgruntled in Philadelphia. I think he wanted a new contract, and they weren't willing to give him one there. So, and Philadelphia is not doing that well, and I don't think, they're not going to do anything in that division this year. And he has an opportunity to go out there and compete and, make the playoffs and get into the tournament and see what can happen. I think it's great for Arizona. Gives them another weapon, somebody else that Kyler Murray can take advantage of. And I think it was a great pickup for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, it sure was. I mean, when you think about it, you got DeAndre Hopkins, and then you have James Conner, who went ahead, got a fresh start with the Cardinals, and look how that's worked out. I mean, hand it to Green Bay. They walked into the desert to pull out a win, shorthanded and less receivers. But you know what? That was an overall good football game. And I know that the ratings of those Thursday night games are really good. I can only imagine what the numbers are going to be like later in the week when I find them out. With that said, let's talk about another recent transaction. Mark Ingram going to the New Orleans Saints. Let me chime in on this one first. Mark Ingram to the New Orleans Saints, to me, is the biggest home run, I think, of some of these moves, because first of all, Alvin Kamara has a complimentary back that he's all too familiar with. And I know that Mark Ingram can catch the football and pick up a lot of valuable yardage on the ground. So I think this is a home run pickup for the New Orleans Saints. Mel Farr, your running back, what's your take on this one?
I always liked Mark Ingram when he came out of Alabama. I really thought he was like the closest thing to Emmitt Smith when he was at Alabama. He runs with that same type of body lean that Emmitt Smith had back when Emmitt Smith used to play. I've always liked Mark Ingram as a player. And I think, you look at some of Kamara's best years is when he was a complimentary player to Mark Ingram. You let Mark Ingram go in there and get those tough yards, and you bring Kamara in there as a change of pace. I think they're the only two running backs in history to have 1,500 yards apiece from scrimmage, and I think they both made the Pro Bowl that year. So, obviously Ingram's a little bit older now. He's not the same back as he was when he was there before. He's bounced around the league a little bit, but I think it's good for him to have an opportunity to finish his career there. And I think it helps out. It definitely is going to help out New Orleans, and as they fight to try to get in the playoffs. Obviously, they played a great game the other day against the division leading Buccaneers, and so they're going to need all the firepower that they can get until Michael Thomas comes back. Jameis Winston's gone down now, so you're going to have to really rely on that running game and the short passing game and the extended running game with the little swing passes or screens or whatever to the running back. So I think it's a great addition. It's going to take a lot of pressure off of Mark Ingram, keep him from having to go work in there in between the tackles. Although he's very good at it, that's not something that you want him to do. I mean, he's very slightly built. You don't want him to take all that punishment. Let a guy like Mark Ingram take that punishment, bring him in there as a change of pace back. And I think good things will happen for him.
Yeah, for all you fantasy folks, having a 1-2 punch of Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram isn't the worst thing in the world, even though we don't have our fantasy guy on tonight. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize Batman and Robin is the equivalent to Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. So with that said, Steve Balestrieri, what's your take on the Mark Ingram situation?
Yeah, I thought that was a great move by New Orleans because for all the same reasons that Mel was just mentioning. I mean, you have a guy like Alvin Kamara he's a legitimate threat every time he touches the ball, but you don't want to, especially you're going to be leaning on your running game. You don't want to burn him out and wear him down. And now you bring in a big guy like Ingram. It's a perfect 1-2 punch where they're going to be relying on that running game. I think that is going to work out really well for him. At certain times, you see this happen a lot. These veterans who kind of on the downside of their career and they're starting to wind down, they get moved in a trade to a good team, and it kind of lights a new fire under him. And I think he's going to finish the season strong.
Well, not only do I think he's going to finish strong, I think the New Orleans Saints, that they were smart, will bring him back in 2022 as well. He's bounced around a little bit. They realize how valuable he is. And if you can bring him back next year, if you're in New Orleans, you bring back Mark Ingram, as long as he has a solid degree of productivity to indeed take the pressure off Alvin Kamara. With that said, let's talk about the rich getting richer. And I'm referring to Von Miller being traded from Denver to the Los Angeles Rams. And Steve Balestrieri, if Aaron Donald wasn't good enough, why don't you just stick in Von Miller with Matthew Stafford and Jalen Ramsey, and especially going to a team where they don't value draft choices anyway, just pick up the marquee name. To me, the Rams don't care about draft choices, and hey, that's their philosophy. If it works and they're winning, get rid of them. So, all right, Steve, give me your take on Von Miller.
Yeah, I was really surprised by this. I was kind of on the fence. I didn't really think Denver would, let Von Miller go. I mean, he's kind of a legend there. Not kind of, he is a legend there. So, I think it's a great move for the Rams. I mean, you have Aaron Donald, now you have Von Miller on the edge. I mean, this defense is going to be really, really tough. And again, Miller was having a good year, not a great year, not by his standards, but I think moving him to the Rams is going to light a fire under him. I think, he's going to have a definite rebirth with that defense out there. I think he's going to love playing with Aaron Donald. That's a team that's trending up. And as you said, they don't care about draft picks. They never met a draft pick they couldn't, do away with if they get the player that they want. And that's their philosophy. It works for them. So, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly Miller gets acclimated. I think he'll be making an impact on Sunday.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that Stan Kroenke, he's pushed all his chips to the middle. I mean, he's all in this year. And Von Miller, obviously, he's not the same Von Miller as he probably was, 4 or 5 years ago. But still, you put him in there with Aaron Donald. Now Aaron Donald doesn't have to worry about, you can't, you got to pick your poison. You can't double team Aaron Donald all the time now. You got to account for Von Miller. And I think it's going to help both of them out. I think it's going to help Aaron Donald out in the fact that he's not going to see as many double teams. And I think it's going to help Von Miller out in the fact that if Aaron Donald does get double teamed, then he's one-on-one with with whoever, and and he can go out there and do his thing. But yeah, I mean, the Rams, they pushed all their chips to the middle. They're all in this year. It's all or nothing. So that's a lot of pressure on a coach when your owner is as aggressive as he is. When I got the quarterback, gave up a lot for him to get him, and you gave up a lot to get Jalen Ramsey last year. And now, you're not giving up a whole lot. And, a couple day 2 picks, second and third rounder, I guess, is what it's looking like it's going to shake out to be. But you get a big name. You're getting a big name in there. So, great. Obviously, there's huge expectations for that team in LA, and I'd like to see how this works out for them. I think it should work out well for both of them.
Well, I mean, I have to say that when Matthew Stafford went to the Rams, I was hoping that Matt Stafford would go ahead and win a Super Bowl with the Rams. And I'll still stick to what I believe. I hope Matthew Stafford does win a Super Bowl with the Rams. And this move here only gives them a much better chance at it. Well, Steve, you kind of alluded to something. So now we're going to go back to where your mindset is at. Derrick Henry's out for the season with a foot injury. Tennessee Titans bring on, and they sign on Adrian Peterson. You talk about a guy who has a little bit of wear and tear on him. But I'm not saying that Adrian Peterson is going to be a difference maker there, but if he can make a positive impact, that's all I'm saying, a positive impact where you don't lose a lot. Think about it, a guy gained over 600 yards with the Detroit Lions last year, and he stayed in shape. So I think, to me, this is a nice signing by Adrian Peterson, yet another location, another stop where he can actually be a productive player. So, Steve, why don't we continue on with what you were talking about before, but we'll relate it to Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, again, Adrian Peterson, he's not the player he was a few years ago, but I think in the right circumstance, and that Titans team, I like that Titans team. I do. I mean, they have their weaknesses, but they're a tough, resilient bunch. And adding Peterson, he's not Derrick Henry by any stretch of the imagination at this point in his career, but I think it's a great move for them. I think that he'll fit right in, and I think he'll like playing for Mike Vrabel.
Well, not only that, he's got Ryan Tannehill who will throw him the football too. Adrian Peterson's a good all-around back. He's not just limited to rushing. The guy can catch the football. So, Mel, with that said, being a running back, the floor is yours.
I think it's good for Adrian Peterson. I think it's going to work out well for the Titans as well. Obviously, everything, Derrick Henry is a large part of that offense. Everything revolves around that running game. And I think Adrian Peterson is going to like it because he's been wanting to be a larger part of offenses. When he went to sign with New Orleans, he got upset because he wasn't being used that much in the offense. And so they ended up trading him somewhere. I forgot where they ended up trading him. And then, he ended up in Detroit, and, they're kind of wishy-washy as far as whether or not they want to run the football. There's no question about Tennessee and what they want to do. They want to run the football. Everything starts with running the football. Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback when there's a threat of the run. And I think that's why they signed Adrian Peterson. They know he's in great shape. He's the same type of runner where he's not going to, he's not making a whole lot of moves. It's put his foot in the ground and put your head down, and he's trying to plow, trying to get him 3 or 4 yards. And every now and then he's going to come out the other side, and he might hit his head on the goalpost a couple times. You just never know. I mean, he still has that kind of speed. He's still that kind of talent, and like to see where he would finish up on the. I think it's good for him because it gives him an opportunity to continue to rack yards up on that all-time rushing list and see him move up on that all-time rushing list because, without question, Adrian Peterson is one of the greatest running backs that we've seen in the last decade. And, even after his injury, I think, what happened in Minnesota was unfortunate with them parting ways. But, he did some great things up there in Minnesota for a long, long time. And I like it and didn't have any help up there. Even the years when Brett Favre was there, that wasn't much help. But, I'd like to see what he can do in Tennessee. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he does very well.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson's like 400 and some yards away from moving to third all time. eclipsing Barry Sanders, and we know Barry's yardage would be a lot more if he didn't retire prematurely. But for that matter, Adrian's would be a lot more if he didn't have that devastating injury as well. And he also, Mel, getting back to your
and he missed some time, wasn't he? Didn't he miss a year because of that whole little thing with his child or whatever?
right. He had that off the field issue to deal with too. But he was also productive with the Washington football team as well. So, Adrian Peterson is going to be third all time. I don't see any reason why. He still have plenty of season to go. So, yeah, I think I'm happy to see him go with Tennessee for sure. So he's been productive for the most part in every stop for sure. And yeah, he's missed a lot of games for different reasons. But, I'm glad he's still playing ball. I really am. All right, let's continue down a couple more football things to talk about. Then we'll move on to some other things. Jameis Winston's season was cut short, and the Saints went over the Tampa Bay Bucks. But there's no Cam Newton sighting or signing at the moment. So let's talk about the Jameis Winston situation. Then we'll have a couple of other things I'll incorporate with that. All right, Mel, go ahead.
It's unfortunate. He's trying to, get his career back on track and has been playing very well. Had a very unfortunate injury there. You hate to see those kind of injuries happen to a guy. It's kind of telling, though, that, Cam Newton's not on the radar. It kind of tells you a lot about what people think about Cam Newton. But, they have a couple quarterbacks there. They have the one guy that Jameis was battling in camp. He's been out a couple of weeks with a concussion. So
yeah, take some help.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to get an opportunity to play. And then they have a proven guy who started in this league as well, in Trevor Siemian. So right. I think Sean Payton feels very good about his quarterback situation. Obviously, he's devastated for Jameis because he knows the kind of work that he's put into it to get back to this point and, have an opportunity to prove that he can play at a high level and be very efficient in the league. But it's unfortunate, but, they look very good. That defense they have is very good, and that'll keep them in a lot of ball games, give them a lot of chances. Obviously, it was perfect timing signing Ingram so they can take some of that pressure off of the quarterback and start running the football a little bit, mixing it up a little bit, taking that pressure off of whoever is going to be the guy that comes in there. But feel bad for Jameis. Wish him the best of luck. Hope he gets well. Hope he gets well soon.
Yeah, Taysom Hill's who's been out with a concussion. I think they have Ian Book on that roster as well. If I remember right, I think he was with Notre Dame, I believe, right? So he's in the room as well. So you have him and Taysom Hill. We all know that he certainly is a very capable player as well. So all right, Steve, what's your take on this? But tell me before you go any further, Steve, why isn't Cam Newton signed yet?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I mean, he still has a ton of respect around the league. You talk to players, and you hear players talk about Cam. He still has a ton of respect. I think a lot of teams are gun shy. They don't think he can play anymore. But you look at some of the quarterback play in the league, and I think there's still a place in the league for a guy like Cam Newton. It's weird. I mean, when I heard that Jameis went down, I was first thing that I thought of was this is a great opportunity for Cam Newton to get back in the league, right back in the same division, that he played for so many years in. And, it just, I don't know. I mean, I would have thought somebody would have signed him by now. I fully expected that. Honestly, once the Patriots released him at the end of training camp there, I figured he'd be signed within a week.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a shame. You hate, I mean, we all know injuries are part of the game. They all happen. But, a guy like Winston who was trying to, rewrite his career. And, he was having a good season. I thought he played well for the Saints. And I think a lot of that is coaching with Sean Payton. I'm not a big fan of Trevor Siemian. That's why I was thinking, well, Siemian played well against the Bucks, but if it was me, I'd rather have Cam.
Yeah, I think what you said is totally on target. All of it was coaching with Sean Payton. Sean Payton is starting to develop a reputation that I can turn anybody around and straighten him out. Just give him a little bit of coaching. It didn't hurt that that Jameis sat a year, so he learned under Breeze a little bit, stepped back, took a deep breath, and became a productive player. Yeah, I feel bad for Jameis Winston. He was certainly had an opportunity to win this job, and I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised to see New Orleans bring him back. But and yet to be hurt against the Tampa Bay Bucks of all teams certainly didn't make matters any interesting. So with that said, so I'm going to throw this out for both of you. Okay, could Teddy Bridgewater return to New Orleans in 2022? We all know what happened when Drew Brees went down, that Teddy filled in, and the quarterback situation in Denver could be murky if they're looking to go after Aaron Rodgers if indeed. But Teddy Bridgewater, New Orleans. Hey, you brought Mark Ingram back. Why not bring Teddy back too? Right, Steve?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that one. And honestly, I know Denver, it's kind of, that's the rumor central that they're going to try to get after Aaron Rodgers. But if I'm Green Bay, there's no way I let him walk out that door. But stranger things have happened. We've seen that stuff before. I just don't see Teddy going back to New Orleans.
Okay, that's fair. I don't see. I'll give a prediction here right now on our national platform. I don't see Aaron Rodgers leaving the Green Bay Packers as long as they keep pacifying him by throwing him a bone once in a while by finding a receiver or two that he likes and it bolsters the defense. So for all you Packer fans that are listening tonight, Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. All right, Mel, take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Teddy Bridgewater. I've never been that high on Teddy Bridgewater. I don't see him going back to New Orleans, but I mean, anything can happen. But I don't see that happening. I mean, they've got they got 3 quarterbacks on the roster right now with Ian Book. I think they're going to elevate him from the practice squad. Jameis Winston will be back at some point in time next year. I'm sure he's going to work his behind off to get back and get out there and try to compete for that starting job. But I don't see that happening with Teddy Bridgewater going back to New Orleans.
Sort of throwing out there anyways for all of us to at least talk about. So with that said, okay, everybody thought this would happen, or maybe they didn't, but is Desean Watson not traded? I'm going to ask you this, Steve, surprised or not surprised?
Not surprised. I mean, I know Houston wanted a lot in return, and justifiably so because of the talent level. But, if I know everyone keeps talking about the Miami Dolphins, but if you're the Dolphins, having your franchise quarterback that you're going to have to pay through the nose, he still has all of this stuff hanging over his head. None of it's resolved yet. The Houston police, I believe, are still doing an investigation. The NFL hasn't even begun one yet because they said they didn't want to interfere with the criminal investigation by Houston. So, if you're a team like Miami, are you going to pony up that kind of capital to bring in a quarterback? And has nothing to do with the talent level because it's there. He's a tremendous quarterback, but we don't know if he's going to be able to play anytime soon, if at all.
Well, the Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, has put that out there that he doesn't want to give up all that capital, as you say, Steve, until a lot of these things are resolved. And the fact that Houston's looking for a king's ransom for it, I agree. I mean, I give the owner, Stephen Ross, credit for sticking to his guns. Okay, I'm not going to make this move until a lot of his baggage is cleared up, and he stayed with it. And Miami doesn't want to get into a bidding war with himself. I actually think Tua Tagovailoa could still be, I don't want to say salvaged, but give him more talent around a guy, and I think he'll resurrect his career. But Mel, what do you think?
Short answer, no, I'm not surprised at all. And I don't even know how we got to this point, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
How he thought he should be involved in whoever was going to be the general manager, who gave him that idea that he would be a part of the process in choosing the general manager still baffles me. It blows my mind. I don't know how we even got to this point where he got upset because they chose a particular general manager and now I want to leave. I don't know who gave him that, who would empower him so that he could think that he really had a decision or was going to be a part of that decision and who the ownership brought in as a general manager. I don't know who he thought he was. I mean, he's been in the league, what, 4 or 5 years or whatever the case may be. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't get that. Tom Brady doesn't get that luxury of having being a part of who's going to come in and be the GM and run the franchise. So what made him think that? I have no idea. So something's going on in Houston. I don't know what's going on, but it's a dumpster fire right now.
Mhm.
It's ever since the owner passed away, and I guess the son is running it right now. It's just been a dumpster fire. It's just
I think a lot of it centers around Jack Easterby. A lot of the rumor central that you hear going on in Houston centers around him. And, he was a character coach in New England, and now he's trying to, finagle his way into the front office of actually being a de facto GM last year. And supposedly he has the owner's ear, the new owner's ear. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like you just mentioned with Watson was put there by Easterby.
Well, amazingly enough, if anything's going to get done with Watson, it's going to be done during the offseason anyways.
he's got to resolve those legal issues. I mean, and then you got to figure out what the NFL is going to do, how long he's going to be out. Then you can start talking about compensation.
Mm-hmm.
But until all that's figured out, nothing's going to happen unless, they just, give him away or they just outright release him or something like that. But, short of that, all these legal issues have got to come to a conclusion before, if I'm an owner, before I would even entertain a trade. I need to know what I'm dealing with, because right now there's so many unknown variables.
Well, all I know is I don't think my vision is that bad, but the title of Desean Watson happens to be quarterback, not general manager. And I don't think quarterback and job description fall into the general manager category. So I guess the guy's going to sit there and collect a paycheck until they figure out what to do with him and see some clarity over the offseason, whether he's tradable that or not. But I do commend Stephen Ross of the Dolphins, though, for not taking the sexy move and trading for him anyways with all these things out there. Stephen Ross is a good businessman anyways. That'll be for another day. But you don't go out there and make a move for the sake of making the move. You don't. And Desean Watson can stay on the bench, and the Texans will just have to go out there and use who they have, and hopefully they can find another quarterback amongst what they have, or they'll draft regardless. But Desean Watson, no, I'm not surprised he was traded either. I mean, why give him away and bid against yourself? Makes no sense at all. Okay, so with that said, former Detroit Lions linebacker Mike Lucci passed away at the age of 81. I am to go with his school with his son Mike at McIntyre Elementary School in Southfield, Michigan. And ironically, I even went to school with Murray Howe, who was the son of Gordie Howe, at the same school as well. So Southfield, Michigan, Mel, as you well know, many years ago, was a pretty good suburb where a lot of people raised their families as well. So with that said, why don't you give us your take on the passing of Mike Lucci, Mel?
It came as a surprise. I was in the car on my way home from work, and my brother called and said, "Hey, this just came up on my phone. I just got that Mike Lucci had passed away." And then we were just talking about, the last time that we actually saw him was, my dad's funeral, and he talked about how your dad went out in style. This was very, very nice. And, as I was saying before the broadcast, I went to school with his son as well at Brother Rice High School. We played football there at Brother Rice High School. So, that's the deal that we signed up for. And when you're young, it seems way down the road, and you don't think it ever can happen to you. But when the doctor smacks you on the booty and you draw your first breath, you sign a contract right then that you're going to draw your last one at some point in time. We just don't know when it's going to happen. It could be you might get one breath, or you're going to get millions of breaths in between that first breath and that last breath. But at some point in time, we're all going to draw our last breath. Death is it's a part of life. And I reached out to my former teammate just to obviously extend my condolences to him and his family. But the fact that I had been through this 6 years ago, my dad passed away. If there's any way that I can help him, if he needs somebody to talk to, I'm here for him, and praying for the family that that somehow they will find peace through this.
Steve, do you know anything about Mike Lucci?
I don't recall him.
Okay.
I don't recall, Mike. I was trying to rack my brain when you guys were talking about this earlier offline, and I just drew a total blank there. But it's tough, losing a parent. Mel was saying he went to school with his son, and Mel went through it a few years ago. I went through it myself a few years before that. It's tough losing a parent. I mean, you think of especially your dad, you think of those guys as invincible when you're growing up. And thoughts out to the family.
Yeah, Mike Lucci was a pretty good running back during the 1970s with the Detroit Lions.
Good linebacker.
Yeah.
Linebacker.
I'm sorry, what did I say? Running back, linebacker.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, a little bit of a linebacker, but they had a lot of good guys on there. Oh, yeah, Wayne Walker on there as well. Alex Karras was on those teams back in the 70s. So, and again, I'll tell you, the Lions were actually decent in the 70s. Okay, decent. I remember when Joe Schmidt coached that team back in the 70s as well. So, but yeah, they were, Mike Lucci was, I got to know his son real well, and, rest in peace to Mike Lucci and his family as well. The crew here want to let you know that we appreciate the fact that you sacrificed yourself to play a game of football. All right, Steve, we're going to stay in your neck of the woods, okay? It's not football related, but we're going to talk about legendary Jerry Remy, who the Boston Red Sox broadcaster who died at the age of 68, about 10 days before his birthday. His impact on the New England area as a broadcaster, he had 30 years, and he died of lung cancer, and he beat cancer 4 times. Before you take over, Steve, I can tell you right now, when I lost my grandfather at the age of 10 years old due to lung cancer, I vowed to never, ever smoke a cigarette habitually. And I can safely say that after 49 years, I haven't done it. So, I mean, it's just, lung cancer to me, smoking, cancer sticks, they're expensive in more ways than one. Not only the medical bills, but I wouldn't want to spend my money on the tobacco companies. I don't have a tobacco sponsor to ride me anyway, so I don't care if you go out there and read me the Riot Act. I am not endorsing tobacco products, whether it's chewing tobacco or cigarettes, and I wouldn't be caught dead buying them. So rest in peace, Jerry Remy. I know that you were great for the New England area. Steve, obviously you're from that area. Take it away.
Yeah, Jerry Remy was, he was a local kid from Somerset, Mass, tiny, very undersized, but he played in the majors for 10 years, 7 or 8 of which were with the Red Sox. So, local kid, played for the Red Sox. He was a really good, solid ball player. And then, he started doing the Red Sox games on television, and he just found his niche. I mean, he had a way of, describing the games to the average fan where you felt like you understood everything that's going on. And he did it with such good nature and humor. And him and Don Orsillo, they were longtime partners, like 20 years. I still can't believe the Red Sox let Orsillo go. I believe he's with the Padres now.
Yeah.
But those two made watching the game, you could be watching a 13-0 game and you could sit there and enjoy it because they made it fun. And that was the biggest thing, and Remy talked about that more than once. He was like, there's, baseball's a business like anything else. There's no reason you can't have fun while you're playing it. And those guys brought that, through their broadcasts. And, he had an innate ability to make Orsillo start giggling like a little schoolgirl, because they'd see something or somebody, the camera would pan, into the crowd, and Remy would make some comment. And they had some legendary clips. They were showing them on Twitter the other night with those two. But he was a great ambassador for the game of baseball, especially up in Boston. He was beloved up there. And luckily for the team, just before he passed away, they had that playoff game against the Yankees, and they had Jerry Remy out there throwing out the first pitch, which was, I think, perfect for them.
Yeah, it's a fitting moment for a guy who's legendary in those parts. And Don Orsillo, traded Cape Cod for the Pacific Ocean. Not the worst thing in the world. I
Yeah.
guess from out here, both areas have high state income taxes, but if you're going to pay a high income tax, you might as well do it with the sunshine. I think that was a mistake that they let him go too. I think, if I know correctly, Dave O'Brien is the new guy, isn't he?
Right.
From ESPN?
And he does a good job, but I thought Orsillo and Remy, and then they brought in Dennis Eckersley a couple of years ago. The three of them, well, with Remy and Eckersley in the booth, unbelievable. Because Eckersley is tremendous now with with the color doing the games, and him and Remy fed off each other perfectly. And they were teammates with the '78 Red Sox, so those two go way back, and it was just sad. I mean, we felt like, when a guy's been broadcasting that long, you feel like you actually know him. That's the way he would portray it, and he always interacted with the fans on social media, and it's a sad day.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, I love watching Dennis Eckersley. I think he's on TBS as well. And, I didn't know anything about Don Orsillo until he was on TBS on the national network. Then I started reading up on him, and I'm glad he's landed. But yeah, there's no doubt that Jerry Remy's an icon. I should know it well, knowing Ernie Harwell was my idol and mentor at the same time. And I know, Mel, you certainly know a little bit about Ernie Harwell, right? How these guys can certainly relate to their local audience, right? Did you at least follow Ernie Harwell, Mel?
I didn't watch much baseball growing up. A little bit, maybe during the World Series,
Right.
but other than that, I didn't watch it. But obviously, being from the Detroit area, I know who Ernie was. I think my dad did I think he did a golf tournament with Ernie Howell as well, for some underprivileged kids somewhere. I think they did a golf tournament together, I believe.
Well, Ernie Harwell's beloved. And one thing about baseball, as we transition into baseball in a moment, you know what? To me, anytime you have a baseball announcer, they are the voice or the face of the franchise when it comes to trying to make the images, as well as whether they're via radio or television. They're the ones that paint the pictures for fans, and they're friends of the fans, and many of them are really helpful to us in the media. So all I can tell you, Jerry Remy, I didn't have a chance to enjoy you as much as Steve Balestrieri. Rest in peace. He'll definitely be missed. But that said, we'll segue over to baseball. And you know what, Mel? You were pulling for Dusty Baker, weren't you, the last time we went on air, weren't you?
Yeah, still am.
Yeah,
Still am.
well, so yeah,
3-0 right now. Jose Soler just hit a 3-run homer, a bomb, knocked it out of the park. I mean, literally out of the park.
look at this guy here. Steve is guy giving us some crack updates. But yeah, but I remember that he does have a chance to win the World Series. They're down 3-2, but they're back at home. But it doesn't look like that things are going so well for Dusty, does it?
Their pitching is wore out, man. Their pitching it's tough, man. It's been taxing on their pitching, and the guy was battling with a 3-2 count. And he threw him one of them curveballs again, and the guy, man, he swung, and I mean, he got all of it, took it right out of the yard. So it's going to be tough. I mean, they've dug a hole for themselves. They got down 3-1. They obviously won the last game in Atlanta to keep it to have this opportunity to play a game 6 and back at home, to get it back at home rather. So it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be an uphill battle for them. And the Braves are swinging the bat real well, pitching real well. Their bullpen has been pretty much unhittable. If they have a lead and they start bringing those guys in, Mentor and that other guy that was out of baseball for 5 years, and then the closer, I can't think of his name right now. And then once they get to that point, it's been real tough for the Astros. So they gotta get some runs. Right now they're down 3-0. They had an opportunity. They had some men in scoring position in the first inning, and they squandered that opportunity. I think they had the bases loaded, if I'm not mistaken. So they missed an opportunity there to get some runs in. So they're gonna have to get some runs in. They did the same thing. They fell behind in Game 5 when the guy hit the home run, the grand slam, and they're down 4 runs real quick in the first inning, and they kind of they chipped away at it, got 2 runs in the second inning, and then chipped away at it a little bit more, and then finally got a lead. So they got the work cut out for them right now. The Braves are tough when they have a lead. They're very tough because Snicker, the way they bring their relievers in there, it's been very, very difficult for them.
Steve, what are your thoughts about Dusty Baker? Is he a guy that you're pulling for?
Not as much. I mean, back in the 90s, I spent a little bit of time in Atlanta when I was still in the military, and I grew an affinity for the Braves. So I'm kind of pulling for the Braves this year. And back then, that era, the Braves had such a great pitching staff. Maddox and Glavine and John Smoltz. They were just amazing. And so I'm kind of pulling for Atlanta in this one.
All right. Well, you know what? I would love to see Dusty Baker win it all. He's got more wins for a manager that hasn't won the World Series. And I hope that he does win one at some point or another. He's done a very good job, though, after AJ Hinch went his separate ways, trying to clean up that cheating situation. And he's been a very stabilizing influence. I hope that the Astros keep Dusty on beyond this year. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. But, so I'm pulling for Dusty. Do I think the task is hard based on what Mel's told us, that Houston is down 3-0. The World Series could be over tonight. But I'm going to tell you this, though, okay, something that hits closer to home. There's the Marlins hat, folks, okay. And Adam Duvall, a former Miami Marlin, who's been a souvenir waiting to happen with his home run production, will lift the Braves to their first title in 26 years. I'll tell you what, he's definitely hit some home runs throughout the course of the postseason. I know that he started the year off in South Florida, and then Atlanta reacquired him. So I'm pulling for Adam Duvall, as well as a lot of the players on that Atlanta team to do well. But Adam Duvall is the guy that's really been their big power man. Mel, you're closer to the situation. How do you assess the job that Adam Duvall has done?
Well, all the guys that they picked up at the trade deadline have contributed mightily here in the postseason. I mean, look at Rosario and what he's done. I mean, he's been huge. Adam Dunn's come up with some timely hits and, some big bombs. Everybody that, all the guys that they picked up at the trade deadline have paid huge dividends for the Braves in what they've been able to do the last half of the season and what they've done so far in the postseason. They've done an outstanding job. So you have to take your hat off to Braves management for getting these guys in. And I think they said the salaries are only like $10 million. I mean, they only increased their payroll by about $10 million. So, and didn't give up anything to get these guys. So they did a great job at the trade deadline.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, there's a team that, was sub 500 before they made a lot of these moves. And then they
5 games before 500 at the trade deadline.
Right.
5 games under 500.
Right. Like I said, sub 500. And now they got hot at the right time, and it's carried over into the postseason. Now they're just a matter of a few innings away from pulling it off. So I'm with you. I have no problem if the Atlanta Braves win the whole thing. Another championship of the city of Atlanta. I have to admit to you folks in Atlanta, I'm starting to figure it out a little bit, how to get into Atlanta off of I-75 South if I hit it at the right time. I enjoyed going through the HOV Express Lane the other day. When we went on our big trip, I got through there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was so easy to do. So I'm starting to figure it out a little bit, but I don't want to get too
It's a tough place to drive,
isn't it? I don't want to get too cocky because I'm bound to be humbled the next time, but I am thankful on the last 2 stops in Atlanta off 75, it's worked out well. So I'm with you, Steve. So you're kind of pulling for Atlanta too as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So, this completes this edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth. You can watch this broadcast. This is a simulcast broadcast for iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple, Google, and wherever you get your podcast, or you can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Before I go any further, though, Steve, let people know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm always available on there.
Mel, what about you?
All the different social media sites at Mel Farr Jr., Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and check out what we have going on here in Atlanta and in Detroit at melfar.org. All
right, and let me reiterate what I just said moments ago. In case you weren't writing as fast as I talk, because I generally talk pretty fast. If you want to hear the audio version of the broadcast, you can do so through Spreaker. You can do Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, especially iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel as well. No cost to subscribe, and you get to hear the audio and the visual. If you want to find the broadcast, you can also go to www.southfloridatribune.com. You want to follow us on Twitter, go for it. @Tribune South gets it done. You want to email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. We'd love to get your feedback as well. So guys did a really good job. I know we went a lot of different directions, which is why we call it the Sports Exchange. We like to talk about a lot of different things. Sometimes we're a little football heavy, sometimes we're not. We go with the flow, and we try to make sure that we keep it interesting from start to finish. So can't tell you how much I enjoy having Steve Balestrieri and Mel Farr Jr. on all the time. Or two of the finer co-hosts that I could be associated with, and I'm proud that you're on my team. So any closing thoughts?
Well, it's good to be back. You know, we had like a week hiatus there, so it's good to be back and talking sports with you guys. It's always a lot of fun, and there's never a shortage of things to talk about when it comes to the sports world. So by next week, we'll have a new World Series champion crowned, and there'll be lots of NFL stuff to talk about. So can't wait.
Yeah, if you only knew what I had to go through in the last 8-9 days, my goodness, it was pretty busy. Driving to Wisconsin. Oh, yeah, I know you had a interesting week as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want your weeks to get any more interesting than they need to be. Just stay home and stay safe. I'm not going to sit here and tell you folks that if you ever go to Bojangles restaurant, make sure you cut your pork in half, otherwise you're going to nearly choke like I did and make people crazy around you. Like Bojangles, but just cut your pork and cut your meats up and make smaller bites. And when you're trying to inhale things out there, like I am, to make time to get your significant other back to work the next day, is that too much information? No, folks, cut your cotton picking meat. Don't follow everything I'm dealing with between concussions and choking. That way we can continue to bring you some more lively broadcasts. So I'll leave it on a positive note. Once again, Steve, Mel, thanks for having you again tonight. And we'll definitely work on doing better the next time, as Tony Kornheiser would say, with PTI. Tony's an icon, and so is Mike Wilbon for that sake. So a little friendly plug-in for our pals over there. So on behalf of Steve Balestrieri and Mel Farr Jr., my name is Scott Morgan. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange, and we'll go ahead and do it again soon. So I hope you enjoyed this broadcast, and take care, be safe, and don't forget one last thing before we sign off. Okay, please be careful with COVID-19. This pandemic is out there, and you know what? It doesn't look like it's going away, so do what you've got to do to try to be safe. So, all right, folks, you take care, and we'll catch you on the next edition of the Sports Exchange. Good night, everybody.